All right, welcome back to WMMA Scene Now with your host Chuck Susan, and welcome to episode number 109 of the WMMA Scene Report, our regular show where we go over everything going on within the world of the women's divisions of mixed martial arts. News, results, previews, discussions, everything. We go over it in this show. I mean, we might not go over every single thing every single week, but you name it, it eventually gets covered at some point on this show. Anyway, let's start. We've got a lot to talk about tonight. I want to talk about Denice. I want to talk about this WFL business. I want to talk about Ryzen. It's UFC 266 week. We got 3 ladies fights. Again, unfortunately, we're supposed to have 4 and 1 got pushed back, but still got 3. That's not a bad number at all for a pay-per-view. Got a lot to talk about, so let's get down into it. So first up, we're going to start where we always start with the past weekend's results. So first up, we go into Miami for Combate Global. They had 2 ladies bouts last Friday. First up at bantamweight, Maritza Sanchez defeated Elizabeth Schroeder via split decision. Sanchez climbed to 2-1. Schroeder fell to 1-2. This fight was fun. I mean, this was an absolutely fun fight. Never really a dull moment. Very close. I saw some things I liked from both fighters, and I saw some things that I didn't like from both fighters. Keep an eye, though, on Maritza Sanchez. I think she brings a lot to a division in bantamweight that honestly has been sorely needing some, a life injection, honestly. I mean, she's fun. She's exciting. She's always moving forward. She's a bit wild. She needs to clean up her game. Definitely needs a lot of cleaning up. And you know what? You hate to say it, but this is important. She's got the looks. She is an attractive woman. So she can definitely inject some much needed life into the bantamweight division. I hope that she's brought along well in her career. Bipolar Express in the chat. How you doing today? And then also on this card I didn't like this fight nearly as much. Gloria Bravo Barrios defeated Irlanda Galindo according to Topology, this is at atomweight. I thought it was at straw. Barrios climbed to 6-5. Galindo fell to 1-1. This is just a mismatch. No fighter should be coming in 5-5, taking on a fighter who is 1-1. Now, granted, someone who has like a 500 record is, someone that a prospect usually takes on to test themselves, but not in only their second pro fight. This was really just a feeder fight for Combate to keep pushing Bravo, and I don't know why. It's like they've been really hype on her. I guess it's because she's like their only fighter from Peru, or at least their only female fighter from Peru. So they've been hyped on her for a long time, even though she can't put any decent wins together. So whatever. I just did not like it. I thought this was at strawweight. Man, Galindo, she's very young. She's only 18. And if you saw the fight, excuse me, looking like not flabby, but very soft in the midsection. I thought she was carrying extra weight because the fight was at strawweight. But if it was at atomweight, that just means, man, she's still carrying some baby fat around. So she's got some growing up to do in this sport. So that was it for Combate. Unfortunately, no Combate this week. Then we moved on to Saturday. Had Bellator 266, 1 ladies bout at flyweight, where Deanna Bennett defeated Alejandra Lara via unanimous decision. Bennett climbed to 11-7. Lara fell to 9-5. The best I've seen Deanna Bennett look in a fight in years. I mean, this was, I don't know what it was. Maybe she had a super great camp. Maybe she's finally starting to put it together after all these years. Maybe it was, they were building her up because she was fighting in the arena that her dad used to do security at. I mean, I know he was a cop, but he was also like moonlighted doing security like a lot of policemen do. And he did security at the SAP Center. Whatever. Point is, Bennett looked the best she has looked in years. And I don't know what to say about Alejandra Lara. She is just not cleaning up her style. She's still a little too wild. She's overextending on her strikes. and she just has a lot of holes in her game that Lobo Gym has not been able to clean up with her. And I don't know if that is a failure on the gym's part, if it's a failure on her part, maybe a little bit of both. I don't know. For Laura, this is, not a good look for her. I think this is, her third loss in 4 fights? Come on, Topology. So it's 2 straight in a row. She has won 2 before this and then lost 2 straight. And she didn't look that great against Kana Watanabe either. Like, she got taken down and just absolutely controlled by Watanabe. So Laura has got to figure something out. But, man, Bennett, can't take anything away from Deanna Bennett. She looked amazing Saturday night. Like I said, the best she has looked in years. And I've been following her for a long time. So congrats to Deanna Bennett. Then we had UFC Fight Night. Smith versus Spann had 4 ladies bouts. I think that was the first time UFC ever pulled off 4 ladies bouts in one card. They've scheduled them before, just haven't been able to pull them off. Usually 1 or 2 of the fights ends up getting canceled before they can go down. Anyway, first up, at flyweight, Hannah Goldie defeated Emily Whitmire via submission due to armbar. 4:17 of the first round. Goldie climbed to 6-2. Whitmire fell to 4-5. Whitmire practically put herself in an armbar. I don't know what she was doing in there, but she made Hannah Goldie look good, and that's no easy task. So. Then also at flyweight, Erin Blanchfield had a successful debut in the UFC, defeating Sarah Alpar via unanimous decision. Blanchfield climbed to 7-1. Alpar climbed to 9-6. You want to talk about domination in a fight? What was it? 2 30-25s and 1 30-26. You don't get more dominant in a fight than that. People say, oh, this person won dominant decision. Was it like 2 30-25s dominant? I mean, Blanchfield just absolutely blew Alpar out of the water. And this is why I was calling her, a very important prospect to watch going into this fight. Granted, did Alpar look great? No. And Alpar might not even belong in the UFC. But can't take away from the fact that, if Blanchfield wasn't good, she wouldn't be able to dominate like that. Now, does Blanchfield need a lot of work still? Yes. She needs to really work on putting it all together and, striking to a plan. Like, she's still throwing strikes out there to throw them out there and see what works. She needs to, actually put, a good plan together as she fights. But I'm telling you, Erin Blanchfield might be the most promising prospect in that division. Just Wave saying hello, waving hello. Welcome, Just Wave. And then, still on the prelims, but up at bantamweight, Raquel Pennington had a nice return, defeating Penny Kianzad via unanimous decision. Pennington climbed 12-8. Kianzad fell to 15-6. This is a very close fight. Very close fight. I see a lot of people giving rounds 1 and 3 to Penny, but Pennington just a little bit better everywhere the fight seemed to go. So congrats to Raquel Pennington. She was coming off a suspension for anti-doping or something. She turned herself. She took some medication, turned herself in, and they gave her a suspension. So unfortunately for Kianzad, it snaps a 4-fight losing streak, and it really hurt her in the rankings too. And we'll get to that in a little bit. Then up on the main card, Ariana Lipski defeated Mandy Bohm via unanimous decision. Lipski climbed to 14-7. Bohm tasted defeat for the first time as a pro, falling to 7-1. The best Lipski has looked in her UFC career by far, and honestly, the worst I've seen Bohm look in her career. I don't know what was in with Mandy Bohm on Saturday night. She just did not look good in that fight. It just was getting beat to the punch, got knocked down, I think, in every round by Lipski striking. Couldn't get her wrestling going, was getting, outworked on the ground by Lipski. Maybe it was UFC jitters, because we all know they are a thing for a lot of fighters. Maybe it was the UFC jitters. Maybe it was inactivity, because, I mean, she hadn't fought since, I think, sometime last year. Yeah, October of last year. So she hadn't fought in almost a year. Maybe it was the inactivity, the jitters. I don't know. She's definitely put on better performances than what we saw Saturday. I've definitely seen her do better than that. So we'll see. But can't take away from Ariana Lipski. Best performance from her in the UFC by far. And then finally, early Sunday, and I actually stayed awake for this bout, and I don't know why. Should have just woken up and watch it. Ayaka Hamasaki defeated Emi Fujino in a non-title super atomweight bout at Ryzen number 30. Hamasaki, the Ryzen champ, stayed the champ because it was a non-title bout, but Hamasaki defeated Fujino via decision. I believe it was unanimous. Unanimous decision. Hamasaki climbed to 23-3. Fujino fell to 25-12. I'll be honest, I was disappointed with this bout. I was expecting a lot more, and that's going to be one of the discussion topics a little bit later, so we'll get to that. Just Wave said he had Kianzad, so you are not alone in having Kianzad winning that bout. So that is it for the weekend results. So let's move into the news. Very little going on this week as far as news, fight announcements, and everything like that goes. But let's go ahead and get into it real quick, and then we'll move on. First up, UFC Fight Night, UFC has a fight night scheduled for October 22nd. They added a bantamweight bout. Shanna Young coming in at 7-3, taking on Stephanie Egger coming in at 5-2. Not two of the best in that division, but that division definitely needs the younger, less experienced blood to help it grow. So we'll see who comes out ahead in that one. I mean, both are. I know Young is an Invicta veteran. Egger fought for Horizon, so she brings that experience with her. We'll have to see who wins that one. And then Super League MMA goes down October 9th in Berlin in Germany. They have a catchweight bout. Local fighter Katarina Lenner coming in at 7-3, taking on Kaylee Voss coming in at 2-2. You might be a little bit familiar with Katarina Lenner. She's fought for Invicta on at least one occasion, I think 2 or 3. She was also on the featherweight season of The Ultimate Fighter. If you bothered to watch that one, I know I didn't, but she was on that season as well. And then some unfortunate news for this weekend, like I mentioned earlier. UFC 266 has lost the flyweight bout between Manon Fiorot and Maia Bueno Silva. Something to do with COVID protocols. Don't know any of the details from that. Don't know if it's like directly fighter related, corner related. Maybe someone doesn't even necessarily have to be like a positive test. It could be someone came into contact with someone who tested positive. Don't have any of the details available. All I know is that fight is off from this weekend, and it has been rescheduled for October 16th. Speaking of some unfortunate COVID news, though, the main event between Miesha Tate and Ketlin Vieira that was scheduled for the bantamweight division on October 16th is off now. That fight is likely going to get pushed back as well. Unfortunately, Miesha Tate tested positive for COVID. And, you can't train for a fight that's only, 3 weeks away when you're going to spend the next 2 weeks recovering from COVID. If she gets it bad, I mean, she might be asymptomatic, who knows? But either way, she can't be training right now. So that fight's going to have to be pushed back. Hopefully they'll find time for it in November or December. And best wishes to Miesha Tate on recovery. And then some final unfortunate UFC news. They've announced, let's see. Well, they didn't announce these, but people basically put it together by looking at the roster and everything, that the UFC has released flyweight Lilia Shakarova and strawweight turned flyweight Emily Whitmire. Of course, Whitmire just lost to Hannah Goldie, and I believe was on a losing streak before that. And then Lilia Shakarova fought one time last year against Lauren Murphy. Ended up testing positive for meldonium that she took before getting signed to the UFC, and it came up, but apparently she failed to inform USADA that she had taken it. Meldonium, if you're not familiar with it, it was just like one of those drugs that the Russian government just handed out to like all of its athletes at one point. Like, I think that's why the Russian Olympic team, or Russia, is like suspended from the Olympics. Now, if you like go, you don't represent Russia, you represent like the Russian Olympic Committee or something like that. I don't know. Apparently, there's even some questions about, you know, what type of benefits at this point that meldonium even contributes to an athlete. I don't know, but apparently it's still banned under USADA, or you know, the WADA, WADA, which is the protocol that USADA follows. So Lilia Shakarova got suspended and has been subsequently been released. Expect to see her back on the Russian regional scene at some point. Let's see. Just Wave says, was looking forward to seeing Cupcake fight again. Yeah, me too. And it was going to be like a title eliminator for her, probably. Possibly. Not guaranteed. But a possible title eliminator for Cupcake. Anyway, that's it for the news. Like I said, there was practically nothing this past week. Just nothing at all. I mean, for the most part, every fight that's going to happen till the end of the year has already been announced. So let's move into the rankings updates. First up, we're going to Bellator. They had some changes in flyweight. So Deanna Bennett was previously not ranked, and with the win over Alejandra Lara, she moved up to number 8, just below Lara, who moved 2 spots down from 5 to 7, which allowed Kate Jackson to move up from 7 to 5. Also, Bennett coming on moved Vanessa Porto down 1 spot from 8 to 9, and then Diana Avsaragova moved down from 9 to 10. And this is the biggest surprise. No Valerie Lareda in the rankings. She is out of the rankings. So I'm not disappointed by that. I mean, she is coming off a loss still. A lot of people are going to say, well, how do you just still justify having Laura above Bennett? Well, because Bennett wasn't even ranked. You don't just take someone who was completely unranked and move them into a fighter's previous spot. At least not the way I would do it. I think it's also weird that Jackson moved up 2 spots and Ortega did not even move. I mean, I don't think Kate Jackson has fought since she lost to Alima McFarland back in what? 2020? 2019? I don't even remember. So Jackson hasn't fought in a while. Ortega hasn't fought in a while either. I guess you could also just, you know, explain away these weird moves because it's a panel. Like, they use a rankings panel and then they combine all the votes and figure it out somehow through some formula. So there's some weird ones there, but for the most part, they make sense, I think. Then we move over to the UFC, which had some changes at bantamweight after last weekend. So Raquel Pennington was previously unranked. She got moved up, boom, number 10 for being unranked because of that suspension to being number 10 off of a good win over Penny Kianzad. Because like I said earlier, Kianzad came into that fight on a 4-fight winning streak. So for Pennington to just come in there and beat her, that was a good move. Of course, Pennington going to number 10, moved down Macy Chasson and Lena Landsberg down 1 spot each. Moved Kianzad down 2 spots from 12 to 14, leaving Julia Vila there, which is, okay, kind of weird to me. And then it moved Carol Hosa down from 14 to 15. And then, unfortunately for Alexis Davis, she got removed. Hello, Orly Bagalore. I'm not even going to acknowledge your post. It's been weeks. Get over it. So that is it for the rankings. So let's move on over into the weekend preview. So we've got a bunch going on this week. Tomorrow morning in the U.S., less than 12 hours from now, we have One Revolution. Features one bout in the one atomweight division, which is 115 pounds. Victoria Lee taking on Victoria Souza. Battle of the Victorias. Lee comes in at 2-0. Souza comes in at 5-0. Souza's the elder fighter. She's 24 to Lee's 17 years old. Let's see. Souza is listed at 5 feet, 152 centimeters, and I believe Lee is like 5 feet, 5 inches, was that like 160? Let me look it up real quick. Topology doesn't even have it listed right now. Victoria Lee is listed at 5 feet, 5 inches, 166 centimeters. So you're talking a huge reach advantage to Victoria Lee. Easy pick here. I'm going with Victoria Lee. And I'll tell you why. Victoria Souza, she has a very nice record, 5-0. But if you look at her record itself, look at who she's fought. Debutante, 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 debutante. She has not fought anybody with any previous fight experience. So yes, she has a pretty record. She has a pretty face. But is that going to be enough? And then I saw like an article earlier this week that said like she found MMA because she was looking for Zumba classes. Really? So you wanted to do Zumba a few years ago, and now suddenly you're going to be an MMA fighter. And I'm expecting you to beat a fighter who not only has 5 inches of height on you and probably the reach to match, don't have a reach available for Souza, but has been studying martial arts her entire life. We all know what's going on here. This is a setup fight to keep Victoria Lee looking good. And they've had to do this for her ever since her pro debut. Her pro debut came against 4-1 Sunisa Sreesan. So they've had to give her fighters with nice looking records ever since. Her second opponent was 3-2, but hadn't beaten anybody good or anybody worth mentioning. And now her next opponent is 5-0. So they're giving her nicer looking opponents each time, whose records look good, but come in with significant size disadvantage and significant like real world martial arts or like actual martial arts experience disadvantages. Lee is fighting paper tigers, if you will, and I don't expect her to fight anybody better for quite a while. That's not to say that Souza can't come in and shock me. I mean, she has a nice record. Like out of her fights, her 5 fights, only 1 went to decision, 2 submissions, 2 TKOs, and 1 decision. And of the finish, but here's the thing: of the finishes, they all came in the first round. So we have no idea really what she looks like outside the first round. Because I always say, you show me a fighter with a lot of first round finishes, my first question is, well, what do they look like when they can't get that finish in the first round? I mean, we know she's won a decision once, but still. Yeah, the pick here, easy one, Victoria Lee. Then we have LFA 115 tomorrow night in the U.S. That's going to be on UFC Fight Pass. As a strawweight bout, Catherine Paprocki taking on Hillary Rose. Paprocki coming in at 3-1. Rose coming in at 5-3. Now, Paprocki is coming in off of a win over Tiani Vali 3.5 months ago, preceded by a loss 2.5 years ago. So she had a long period of inactivity but just ended it 3 months ago with a win. Hillary Rose is coming off a loss in CFFC to Elise Reed 3 months ago. Before that, had a win via TKO in CFFC. That was 5 months ago. They are the same age, 28 years. They have the same height, 5'3", 160 centimeters. Paprocki has a slight reach advantage, 65 inches, 165 centimeters to Rose's 63 inches, 160 centimeters. This is going to be a good one. You know, Paprocki, I've been following her sort of since she made her pro debut. She made her MMA debut as part of a tournament. It was called the Queen of Sparta tournament. The quarterfinals, you had to win a boxing bout. The semifinals, you had to win a Muay Thai bout. And then in the finals was an MMA bout. And that was all in one night. So she showed a lot of promise since then. And I've been following her since then. Her only loss is to Emily Ducote, the current Invicta strawweight champ. So no shame with that one. Hillary Rose, you might remember her. She lost to Cheyenne Bays on the Contender Series. She was the one Cheyenne Bays was like, get the fuck up or whatever, you know. But this is a close one. I'm not really going to, I don't feel comfortable making a pick on this one. Then we go to Brave CF54 coming on Saturday in Poland. I believe that's their first show in Poland. And they signed a Polish fighter to come in as well. Evelina Wozniak taking on Salman Kamal Bake. Wozniak coming in undefeated at 5-0. Bake coming in at 5-3. The Italian fighter Bake is 4 years the elder. Yeah, 4 years the elder, 32 to 28 for Wozniak. Let's see, Wozniak's the taller fighter, 5 feet 5 inch, 165 centimeters, to 5'2", 157 centimeters for Salman Bake. I believe you can actually watch this fight for free if you want to. If you go to Brave, it's like bravecf.com, something like that. I believe this will be free. So if you want to go check it out, you can. Wozniak seems like a pretty good prospect there out of Poland. Has some nice wins over Karolina Wojcik, Magdalena Sermova. Most recently picked up a win in Octagon 4 months ago. So she's got a nice record. Now, Bake is riding a 3-fight win streak as well. Most recently fought 5 months ago, picking up a win via rear naked choke. So keep an eye on this one as well. I like to spotlight, the Europeans sometimes. Speaking of Europeans, Almighty FC, I believe this is number 10, goes down, Almighty FC 20 goes down Saturday in Gateshead, England. Lanchana Green taking on Jade Barker at strawweight. Unfortunately, Topology doesn't have this card up at all, so I can't really read any stats. I just thought this was an interesting one because Lanchana Green, you may or may not remember her from the Ultimate Fighter 24, the second season to feature strawweights. She was on there, but she didn't get picked up by the UFC. Has been like fighting kind of sporadically since then, but I've been keeping an eye on her. She's doing okay so far. She was like vastly inexperienced to be on that Ultimate Fighter season. That was just not a very good season overall. But she's fighting this Jade Barker girl on Saturday. Let me at least look up their records here. Lanchana Green is coming in at 3-3-1. Jade Barker coming in at 2-3. So slightly favors Lanchana Green here. But if you want to check this fight out, I believe Lanchana posted the link on both her Instagram and Facebook pages, so you can go check that out if you want to. Anyway, the real meat and potatoes this weekend is happening in the U.S. at UFC 266, Volkanovski versus Ortega. First up on the prelims a women's flyweight bout. Roxanne Modafferi taking on Taila Santos. Modafferi, the Happy Warrior, coming in at 25-18. Santos coming in at 17-1. Modafferi coming in, she's been going win-loss for a while now. But coming off a loss to Viviane Araújo 6 months ago. Before that, had defeated Andrea KGB Lee in a unanimous decision 11 months ago. Santos riding 2 wins after her first career loss to Mara Barella, 2.5 years ago. Since then, she defeated Molly McCann a year ago, and then Jillian Robertson 8 months ago. Modafferi is the elder fighter by 11 years, 39 to Santos' 28. Modafferi slightly taller, just slight, 5 feet 7 inches, 170 centimeters to 5 feet 6 inches, 168 centimeters for Santos. And that extends to the reach as well, 69 inches, 175 centimeters for the Happy Warrior Modafferi. Santos coming in 68 inches, 173 centimeters. So, I've talked multiple times about the disparity between, athleticism and skill, and how, certain fighters have enough skills to overcome a more naturally athletic athlete. But sometimes fighters, their natural athleticism can overcome fighters with the skill, but not without the athleticism. This is going to be one of those fights. You have a really strong natural athlete here in Taila Santos, whose skill has progressed. No doubt her skill has progressed. She's looked a lot better in her last 2 fights than she did losing to Mara Barella via split. So she's really been putting her game together. Modafferi, she's one of those fighters, she's probably reached her peak at 39 years old, which is crazy to say because a few years ago she hadn't even reached her peak yet. But she's definitely peaked and she's plateaued again at 39, I think. She certainly has the skills to keep Santos at bay, but I think she's not athletic enough to hold off Santos. I think Santos has reached that point where her skill progression has caught up to her athleticism. So I'm going to go with Taila Santos to win this one. Probably by decision. Honestly, when in doubt with the ladies' fights, always go by decision. Then we move on to the main card, the pay-per-view portion in the U.S. A flyweight bout, Jessica Andrade taking on Cynthia Calvillo, a fight you probably would have expected to see at flyweight like just 2 years ago. Andrade coming in at 21-9, Calvillo coming in at 9-2-1. Andrade coming in last fight, lost to Valentina Shevchenko 4 months ago. Before that, had the win over Katlyn Chookagian. Calvillo coming in off a loss to Katlyn Chookagian 9 months ago. Before that, had a win over Jessica Eye via decision. Let's see. Calvillo's the elder fighter, 34-30. It's easy to forget how, Calvillo is not that young because the UFC, pushed her as, a young, hot prospect when she first came in. But she's 34 years old already. Let's see. Calvillo's the taller fighter, 5'4", 163 centimeters to Andrade's 5'1", 155 centimeters. And Calvillo has to reach as well, 64 inches, 163 centimeters to 62 inches, 157 centimeters. This one's interesting. Calvillo does her best work on the ground, but she has a really bad habit of thinking that she's a striker. When she, like I said, she does her best work on the ground and tends to forget that. Whereas Andrade, arguably does her best work on the feet, or she just beats up on chicks. And that's not to say, her ground game's underrated too. She submitted JoJo Calderwood via guillotine. She has those amazing slam takedowns that can hurt people. Knocked out Rose Namajunas with one. I think Calvillo would be best served taking this to the ground. I think she'll have her best chance there if she can get Andrade down. But I think Andrade wins this one. I think she's a specimen. I mean, she's Jessica Andrade. She's going to beat a lot of fighters that you would think should beat her, have the skills to beat her. But Andrade, she's up to her skills as well. Her skill set, up to her game. And she's still a specimen. She was very strong at 135. She was an absolute beast at 115, and she's still amazing at 125. Finished Katlyn Chookagian in the first round. I mean, that was just amazing. With a hook to the body, with body shots. Beat Chookagian with body shots. How many fights do you see won to the body in MMA? Not many. How many fights do you see won with body shots in the women's divisions? A lot less. So for her to beat Chookagian like that was just simply amazing. I'm going with Jessica Andrade to win. You know what? You guys can't behave yourselves in the chat. You go to timeout. You can come back when you learn to behave a little bit. You're not blocked. You're just in timeout for 5 minutes. So let's see. Oh, then we move on to the co-main event of the evening. Women's Flyweight Championship. Valentina Shevchenko defending her title against Lauren Murphy. Bullet Shevchenko coming in at 21-3. Murphy coming in at 15-4. Both fighters are riding, well, Shevchenko hasn't lost since the second fight to Amanda Nunes a while back. Most recently defeated Jessica Andrade via crucifix. Some striking 4 months ago. Lauren Murphy riding a 5-fight win streak. Most recently defeated Joanne Calderwood via split decision about 2.5 months ago. Not exactly a whole lot of time to prep for Valentina Shevchenko, that's for sure. Anyway, Murphy's the elder fighter by 5 years, 38 to Shevchenko's 33. They are the same height, 5 feet 5 inches, 165 centimeters. However, Murphy has 2.5 inches of reach, 68 inches, 173 centimeters to 65.5 inches, 166 centimeters. Well, thank you, Game Talk. Okay, I'll be honest here. Count me one of those people who's just not giving Lauren Murphy any real chance here. I mean, I'm just not. Murphy is one of those fighters. She's well-rounded, but you can't. You ask, what does she do really well? And you're left, kind of scratching your head. What does she do really well? I mean, she's tough, but tough ain't going to get you a title against Valentina Shevchenko. It's not going to win you the fight against her. It's just not. I just can't find a way for Lauren Murphy to win. I mean, her best chance is for her to just really drag this into a mess fight, an absolute mess. She's going to have to, drag this into a brawl somehow. But how do you do that against Valentina Shevchenko, who is always in complete control? I mean, just always in complete control. She always knows where she's at. She always knows exactly what her body is doing. She can read her opponents 3 moves ahead. She's like a chess master, reading several moves in ahead. You come at her striking, she's going to counter you. You get in too close, she's going to take you down and start beating up on you. I just can't see Murphy winning this. I mean, I just can't. And like Robert Softman said, how you doing, Robert? Murphy is nice. She is nice, lady. She's skilled. She's tough. But she's slow. Yeah. She's going to be at a serious, detriment as far as speed goes in this fight. I got to go with Shevchenko to win this one. And I think a lot of people are picking Shevchenko to win by finish. I'm going by decision here because you look at Shevchenko's last 5 fights here: finish, decision, finish, decision, finish. So I'm gonna pick Shevchenko via decision here. Robert says, you're right. She's got to make a total brawl out of the match, and Murphy is very A-B, A-B. Yeah, she has like 1 or 2 combinations on the striking, and that's it. Cool T Vlog says, move on, but Ham lost fight. I'm trying to move on. Can't help it that you got these, midwits coming in and just they can't let it go. Anyway, that is it for the weekend preview. So let's move on to some discussion. Actually, I have moved on, but this one just came up in the news, and I wanted to talk about this. There's a good article here by Nick Atkin on South China Morning Post about Denice Zamboanga. It says, Denice Zamboanga feels disrespected as review upholds Hamsahi win. Says Filipino disappointed after not being told the decision of one's review of her split decision loss in the Atomweight Grand Prix. I expected the official announcement. I would hear from them, not just from someone else, says the Filipino. So let's read the full article here. It says, Denice Zamboanga has admitted she felt disrespected in the wake of one championship's review into her split decision loss to Hamsahi this month. It says, one's competition committee upheld the result of the Atomweight Grand Prix quarterfinal on September 3rd's all-female Empower card in Singapore, which saw the Filipino Lichen Queen suffer her first defeat. The 24-year-old Zamboanga has had plenty of support, with the Asian promotions boss Chatri Sityoton, as well as arch rival and divisional champion Angela Lee, both saying they thought she beat the South Korean veteran Ham. One chairman CEO Chatri announced in an interview with the Post that Zamboanga's defeat would not be overturned, though he did reveal she would face Brazilian Julie Meza Barba next month in an alternate bout for the Grand Prix. So here are the quotes. Actually, when my brother sent me the video of the review result, I felt disrespected, Zamboanga said on the Combat Sports Weekly podcast with Franco Rolota. I expected that the official announcement I would hear from them, not just from someone else. But then she kind of contradicts herself there, because in the very next quote it says, for me, it's disrespectful because they said that they will announce in public, which they did, but it's not, so I feel disappointed. I just told myself not to expect anything, just prepare myself. So, yeah, she kind of contradicts herself here. Okay, because she thought she would hear from them, not just from someone else. But then in the very next quote, it says, for me, it's disrespectful because they said that they will announce in public, but it's not, so I feel disappointed. Well, but he did announce it in public. So it's like, are you disappointed because they didn't tell you first? Are you disappointed because they announced it publicly, because they didn't announce it publicly? It's like, she contradicting herself. Make up your mind, Denice. And while you're at it, stop being so salty. That's why I put the big piles of salt there. But let's go ahead and finish this article here. It says, Zamboanga is still in quarantine in Thailand, but said she will meet her team at the Merrick Force Gym in Bangkok to discuss her next moves. After revealing, Chatri texted her saying he wanted her to fight Unstoppable Lee. The number 1 ranked atomweight contender was set to challenge Lee before the champ revealed last October she was pregnant, blah, 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 blah. Quote, I don't know what happened. They want me to fight in the Grand Prix, but they want to see me in other things. I really don't know their plans, Zamboanga said, laughing. They asked me to fight Angela Lee. I don't know what happened. I don't understand. For me, I don't care. Whoever they match me with, it's okay for me. Meza Barba already secured a spot as an alternate for the Grand Prix after beating former challenger Mei Yamaguchi by unanimous decision on the Empower undercard. Quote, it's unfair for Julie because she already achieved the alternate slot, Zamboanga added. For me, it's okay. It's an advantage for me. I can carry on fighting. I don't care whoever I fight, but the important thing is Angela Lee is the last one. Again, she's kind of contradicting herself. Like, it's like, do you want the fight or not? Do you want the fight or not? Do you really care? I don't know. Anyway, quote, everyone says, Denice, please stay in one championship because we want you to fight with Angela Lee. Even on Bikini Post social media, they say Angela Lee. She added, laughing. Thank you for all the Filipinos who want me to fight with Angela Lee. They're very aggressive. They almost got blocked by Facebook for their aggressive comments. If I read their comments, I still feel like I'm the champion. So, yeah, I don't know what Denice wants at this point. It's like, did you want them to read? I mean, she got what she wanted. She got the review. She just didn't get the results she wanted. And it seems like, I don't know, was she disappointed that they announced it in public without telling her first? That's what one championship does. Like, that's kind of what Chatri does. Like, he announces stuff in interviews or on Facebook. He doesn't always necessarily tell people what's going on beforehand. Like, he'll tell, like, people know, like, oh, well, I'll make an announcement about this coming soon. I don't know. I mean, I think they definitely should have let her know, like, hey, I think they should have let her know beforehand. I mean, how do you just announce, oh, yeah, we're going to have her face Julie Mesa Barba next for another alternate spot? Like, that's like very Dana White behavior. Like, Dana likes to announce fights before they're actually officially signed so that then he can force fighters to sign a contract that they maybe were reluctant to sign. So maybe that's what it is. I don't know. Maybe that's what she's upset about. But I would be upset about that too. Like, if you announce, hey, Chuck is going to be fighting so-and-so next month, and it's like, yeah, we barely even begun negotiations for this fight, and you're already announcing that this fight is official. It's like, whoa, I haven't signed anything yet. So that I can understand is disrespectful to Denice. I don't see it as disrespectful for Mesa Barba to fight someone else, though, because, okay, let's say someone drops out before the semifinals fight. Mesa Barba already has that spot, so she gets moved into the semifinals right away. But if nobody gets hurt and they all fight in the semifinals, well, you still got to have an alternate for the final bout just in case one of those two get injured. And that's what Mesa Barba versus Denice could serve as. So that kind of makes sense to me. Let's see. Robert Southman says, too much whining at this point. She's young and will get another shot. Disappointment is part of life for FC. Yeah. And then left to sophomores. Well, you're right. You know, you gotta just learn to take the lumps, take the disappointment, and eventually move on. But I mean, like, keep that, fire inside of you, because you want to be mad about something, but you want to take that disappointment and that anger and, like, let that be like the fire inside you, that, or like the kindling for that fire inside you, that, it stokes that fire to drive you forward. I mean, that's how you take losses as a competitor. Raw Hobbies and Lifestyle says, this is quite dangerous if she's still living the past about the loss. Even if she thinks it's a robbery, just move on and come back stronger for a rematch. It's a sport. Don't care about the first loss. Yeah. I am one of these fighters, I'm one of these fight fans. I don't put a whole lot of weight on an undefeated record in mixed martial arts. To me, that just means you're not tested. Like boxing is all about having those undefeated records. Boxers will protect their well into like their 20-something fight. Whereas in MMA, it's like, you take a loss as a prospect. It's not a big deal. Like, every prospect pretty much takes a loss at some point. You learn from it and you move on. Most fighters will tell you that they learn more from their losses than they do from their wins. Of course, that depends on each individual fighter, but again, that's up to them. But yeah, most fighters will tell you, you take that lump and then you move on with it. It is unfair for Mesa Barber since she earned a spot in the Grand Prix already. Well, she earned her alternate spot for the semifinals. But if you think about it, you want to keep her having the same amount of fights as the fighters that move on. So she has the semifinal alternate spot, but they still need an alternate spot for the final in case if all the semifinalists make it to their fight and move on. They might not make it on from, into the finals, and then you need an alternate spot there, but you want someone who has had the same amount of fights. That way they're not coming in super fresh and everything. It stays competitive that way. Cool Vlog says, it has been weeks, but your topic's still about Denice. Well, it was an article on SCMP from, when was this published? Just like 5 days ago. So published since the last one. So I thought it was worth discussing. Like I said, I'm over the fight. Everyone else is still holding on. Good for Denice. She's still ranked number 1. Yeah, that's goofy too. Raw Hobbies and Lifestyle says, learn from Martin Nguyen, Christian Lee, come back after their first loss and become champ. Great examples from the same promotion. Makes a lot of sense. And then Robert Southman says, I learned nothing from my wins. The losses spurred growth. Denice needs better management at this point. I don't know if she needs better management. I think she just needs, better encouragement at this point. Anyway, moving on to the next topic. I want to talk about the fight on Sunday between Ayaka Hamasaki and Emi Fujino. I'll be honest, for two champions in their respective promotions, Ayaka Hamasaki and the Rising champ, Emi Fujino, the Pancrase champ, I expected better. I honestly expected better from this fight. Especially because, this is a rematch, like almost 10 years in the making, around 9.5 years ago, or 9.5 years ago. And they said, the first time they fought in a half-empty, hall. And this time they're fighting in front of a big crowd with TV exposure. They wanted to really put on a good show. But I'll be honest, I was disappointed by their performance here. I thought, to me, like I said in the thing here, this came off like a glorified sparring match. Now, I know people are going to say instantly, but just look at the picture and look at Fujino's face afterwards. And how can you say that's a glorified sparring match? Well, look at Fujino's face after most fights. She usually gets beat up. Even in wins, she's bruised and swollen and everything. I'll be honest, I just did not see two fighters who really, really wanted to go for it here. Now, I thought Fujino went for it a little harder than Hamasaki did, whereas Hamasaki was just content to sit back and counter all night. I've watched enough Ayaka Hamasaki fights to know when she's going for it. She did not go for it in this fight. Okay, you watch her fight against Ham. She was going for it. She was trying to finish Ham in the first round. You watch both of her fights against Kana Asakura. She went for it in the first fight. She finished her. She tried to go for it in the second fight. Couldn't get it done, but she was going for it. You saw her fights against Miyu Yamamoto. She went for it. Finished her in the first round. Her two fights against Jinyu Fry. Went for it in both of those fights. Her fight against Amber Brown came back from nearly being finished herself. Went for it, got the finish. Those are good examples of Ayaka Hamasaki going for it in its fights. To me, in this fight, she did not go for it. Fujino went for it a little bit, but she just did not have the skill to keep up with Hamasaki. And like I said, these two are friends. Like, they hang out together. They don't train together because they're different gyms, but they do hang out together. Like, there's videos of them hanging out, getting dinner with themselves and other fighters. Like, they're hanging out together a lot. They're genuine friends. And I kind of knew, like, going in. I said, I believe I said last week, this is going to go one of two ways. Either they are going to absolutely beat the crap out of each other, which friends sometimes tend to do, or this is going to be a glorified sparring match. And unfortunately, it became a glorified sparring match, which is the exact opposite of what I want to see. I want to see these two go in there and say, friends aside, I want the win. I want the win so bad that I'm going to beat the crap out of you to get it. That's what I wanted to see. You know, I don't want to see sparring fights. And you could say, well, but they beat each other up pretty good. You know, Hamasaki was bleeding. Fujino was, busted up good. Yeah, but I've also seen sparring matches where fighters get busted up pretty good. This to me looked like a really glorified sparring match. Not one I wanted to see at all. I mean, I was just so disappointed for this one. Raw Hobbies and Lifestyle says it's totally a boxing match with MMA gloves. Yeah, that's what it looked like. They didn't even try to go to the ground either. Like Hamasaki. When does Hamasaki not try to go to the ground at all in her fights? Like, we know Fujino can't always go because she's got, messed up knees and all kinds of surgeries. But when does Hamasaki not look for opportunities to take the fight to the ground? That's where she gets most of her finishes. Just really disappointing results. Robert Southman says it's hard to fight people you know and have trained with. Sometimes, but for some people, like, they can really just pull it out. I mean, there were the two brothers. I'm trying to remember the Fodor brothers, Karos and something Fodor, that fought in the PFL, or it might have been World Series of Fighting at the time still. But like the two brothers, they went in there and they beat the crap out of each other. I mean, it was fairly one-sided. The older brother beat the piss out of the younger brother. They didn't care. I mean, like, you would think two adult brothers would not want to beat the crap out of each other like that necessarily. But they went in there and one brother put a whooping on the other brother. I was hoping to at least see these two really actually try to go for a finish here. But they didn't even do that. Hamasaki was just content to stay on the outside and counter and land her jab and the left hand at will. Fujino was just obliged her by keep coming forward on her. Just really disappointing. Listen, fighters, to any fighter that might watch this, and I don't know how many do, if they do at all, but to any fighters that might watch this, you get an opportunity to fight on a big stage, whether it's a friend, dance partner, sparring partner, whatever. Nobody wants to see you go in there and do a sparring match. Okay? No one is paying to see you spar. They're paying to see you fight. And a sparring match is not a fight. Okay? It is pretend fight. It is like a warm-up to a fight. It is a practice to a fight. That's what sparring is. It's not the fight. And no one is paying to see people spar. If they want to pay to see you spar, they can come to your gym and pay to see you spar. But no one's buying an online pay-per-view, and no one's buying tickets to a big arena to see you spar on a big platform. Go in there and fight. Anyway, moving on. This is an interesting article I found. Someone posted. I didn't find this. Someone posted it on Reddit, the WMMA subreddit. It says, 17-year-old prodigy tipped to eventually surpass one championship star, Angela Lee. The key points being that Victoria Lee is bound for bigger things, competing at a young age of 17 years old. Victoria Lee is facing more advanced opponents compared to her sister Angela. And Victoria Lee tested the medal of Victoria Souza at One Revolution on Friday. This is from the International Business Times. This, honestly, it reads like one of those promotional pieces that someone who works for One Championship writes, and then they pay to put it on their site or whatever. But let me go ahead and read this here real quick, because I thought it was a pretty interesting article here. It says, on the surface, proclaiming Victoria Lee the 17-year-old mixed martial arts phenom and one championship, will someday surpass older sister Angela, comes across like a bed of hot coals. After all, Victoria is just 2 fights into her professional career, while Angela is already an established superstar with a record of 10-2. Doesn't list it, but she's also a champion. But the notion that Victoria could eventually end up outdoing her older sibling may not be as far-fetched as it initially appears. When Angela made her professional MMA debut, one of the main talking points was her age. At the time, she was just 18 years old, an astoundingly young age for a professional athlete, even more so in a sport like MMA. That's not true. I've talked numerous times about young teenagers fighting. Upon her arrival in one championship, the oldest Lee sibling rattled off 5 consecutive wins, all by submission, including the rare twister that went viral on social media. She ran through 9 tough opponents in a row before suffering her first defeat. In her fifth professional fight, the then 19-year-old defeated Japanese veteran Mei Yamaguchi to capture the inaugural women's atomweight title in the promotion. The victory marked Angela's best win at that point by a significant margin. What Yamaguchi represented as a savvy veteran was a litmus test for the young atomweight and an opportunity to prove that she truly belonged in one championship. Of course, Angela passed the test with flying colors, defeating Yamaguchi via unanimous decision, albeit going the distance and facing adversity for the first time in her career. Was that unanimous? I don't remember that being. I got to look that up because I could have sworn that was a split decision. Yeah, it was unanimous. Okay, I could have sworn that first fight was split. Okay, prior to her bout against the Japanese MMA mainstay, the combined record of Angela's opponents stood at 10-9, a reasonable mark for a teenage rising star's opposition. Now, with Victoria competing on the same stage alongside her older siblings, there are a few notable differences when comparing Angela's career trajectory. Foremost, Victoria's professional debut came at the even more astonishing young age of 16. Furthermore, in her first 3 fights, including her upcoming bout at One Revolution, the combined record of her opponents entering the fight is 12-3, good for an 80% finishing rate. In comparison, through Angela's first 3 bouts, the combined record of her opposition was 5-7, with just over a 41% winning rate. Additionally, Victoria joined a stacked atomweight division that is teeming with talent. But she's not fighting that talent. Anyway, at least on paper, the opponents Victoria is facing in the circle currently are much more advanced in terms of experience and skill compared to the foes Angela faced when she was just starting. This means Victoria's development as a fighter will theoretically come quicker. Victoria also has the benefit of foresight. While Angela's success has been a trailblazing affair for her and her family, Victoria is the youngest of the 3 Lee siblings under contract with one championship. Angela is 25, Christian, the lightweight champion, is 23, and Victoria is now 17. The benefit of having 2 elite mixed martial artists as older siblings should not be understated. Victoria has echoed the praises of her kin on many occasions, lauding them for the guidance and support they provided her. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, although each pair of siblings are unique, coming from different backgrounds and disciplines, there is more than enough proof to surmise that the younger sibling normally has the upper hand when their careers are all said and done. With the benefit of a historical context, an unrivaled support system, and a steeper learning curve than her older sister, it's feasible to say that Victoria could end up being the better mixed martial artist of the 2 Lee sisters. All of that is mere speculation at this point, and Victoria will have to prove it in the cage. Blah, blah, blah. So I thought it was an interesting article. I think they make some good points here. I think this is definitely worth a discussion at this point, so that's why I included this. Is Victoria Lee on a better trajectory at this point in her career than her sister? Well, the big thing they brought up was the comparative records of the 2. Because you look at Angela's first 3 opponents who all came in one championship. Her first opponent was Aya Syed Saber, who was 3-5 at the time. Her second opponent was Mona Samir, who was making her debut. And then her third opponent was Natalie Hills, who was 2-2 at the time. So on paper, yeah, you could definitely say that, Victoria's opponents look better. But again, let's look at Victoria's opponents here. Because if you only look at the numbers, the pure numbers that they bring themselves, they look good, 4-1, 3-2, and then Victoria Souza tomorrow is 5-0. But let's look at Denice Sreesen's record. She's 4-2. She was 4-1 coming into that fight. 3 of her wins were against debutantes. Then she loses to Sam Fairtex. Oh, by the way, Denice Sreesen's first 3 fights came in 2016 and 2017. She didn't fight again until 2020, taking on Sam Fairtex, losing. Then she beat Rika Ishige. Rika Ishige was 4-4 at the time, last year in September. Then she takes on Victoria Lee and loses. Okay, so that's Denice Sreesen, Victoria's first opponent. Then you look at her next opponent, Lu Ping Wan. 3-2 when they faced each other. Wan lost her first 2 fights to fellow debutantes. Won her third fight against someone who was 0-1. Now, her biggest win was against Miao Ding, who was 13-5. But I mentioned this before, that Miao Ding is a complete can crusher. And sometimes she loses to the cans, to the people that were meant to be cans. Like, she only fights in China, and they give her nothing but absolute cans to crush. So, while that's one of those wins that looks good on paper, it's really not in context. So then for Wan's third win, her 5th fight, she's 2-2, and she fights a debutante again. So again, it's like, okay, 3-2, she has a winning record on paper. But again, it's like nothing to really show for it when you really look at the context of those wins. And then you look at Victoria Souza, who's coming in at undefeated. But like I mentioned earlier, all of her wins came against debutantes. 4 first-round finishes, but that doesn't really tell you a whole lot, though. Like I mentioned that I like to say, you show me someone with a lot of first-round finishes, all I know is they're good at blitzing their opponent. But how do they do when they can't blitz their opponent? So, yeah, you can't really... I mean, honestly, I would say Angela was fighting the opponents you expect to see someone fighting at the beginning compared to Victoria, at least on paper. Like, you expect a fighter to fight someone who's making their debut when they're first starting out, which Angela did in her second fight. She beat roughly a journeyman fighter with a 3-5 record in her first opponent. That's someone with a lot more experience. So yeah, she has a losing record at the time, and record's even worse now. Man, Saber's like 3-9 now, mostly fighting in China, of course. But that's a very experienced opponent for your first fight. And then for her third fight, she fought Natalie Gonzalez-Hills, who was 2-2 at the time, and was, coming off of 2 straight losses. But again, she was fighting opponents whose records were similar or close in experience to her own. So Angela was fighting at a record much more commensurate to her experience level at the time, whereas Victoria, they're trying to make her look good early by giving her these fighters whose records look nice on paper, but in reality don't hold up. So the big argument here is that she's facing the higher opposition, but she's really not. She's just facing what I like to call, the paper tigers. They look fierce, they sound fierce, but the reality is she's also fighting opponents that are a lot smaller than her, too. Because, I don't think Angela had nearly the size advantage over those first opponents. Let's look at the Saber fight. Saber was actually taller than Angela, 5'7" to 5'4" for Angela. So she actually fought a bigger opponent. That surprises me. Fight was so long ago, I had forgotten that. Mona Samir, same height, 5'4". And then Natalie Hills, who's a darn good striker, by the way. And she took her down and twisted her. That was the first time Angela fought someone smaller than her, but not that much smaller, 5'4" to 5'2", so only 2 inches. 6 centimeters. That's not a big difference in height. That's relatively normal in MMA. So Angela was actually fighting, you could easily say that in reality, Angela was fighting the stronger opposition. Because, again, let's look at Victoria's record here. Yep. She's fought all smaller opponents. Sunisa Sreesan, 5'1", and Victoria's 5'5". So 4-inch height advantage there. Lupin Wan, 5'2" compared to 5'5". 3-inch height advantage to Victoria. And then Victoria Souza tomorrow morning is 5-0. So that's a 5-inch height advantage for Lee. So I have to disagree that, Victoria's facing the tougher opposition. Nicer on paper, yes, definitely. But the tougher opposition, I have to disagree strongly. What were the other points here? The bigger, the more moderate learning curve. Yeah, there's a point to that. But, people have mentioned on this stream before in the chat that, that's dangerous to fight that young. It is. I mean, you're still growing. You're still developing. If you get hurt, it could be serious. So we'll have to see. But I thought that was an interesting article. So we'll see. Hold on, let me see. Okay, so yeah, I did find the right one. Robbie's Lifestyle says their plan is let Angela move up to strawweight or retire a winner and let the sister replace her in atomweight. And Robert Sothman says it's obvious, right? Yeah, if Victoria doesn't end up growing faster, because she's already taller, an inch taller. Robert says, I figured there will be some other up-and-comers that will smash Victoria Lee. Well, eventually they're going to have to give her someone recognizable. Like, so far, all they've given her are complete newcomers to one championship. And the big test will be, will those fighters that she's faced so far get more fights in one championship, or are they one-and-done fighters? That will be interesting to see. Actually, no need newcomers. Current roster in one, a lot can beat her. I think so, possibly, or at least give her a lot of trouble. There's definitely a lot of fighters that can beat her, and there's some fighters there that can give her a lot of trouble. Meow Ding is a social media fighter. Yeah. I mean, pretty girl, nice body, real pretty. Just not very good. Raw Hobbies Lifestyle says, yes, Victoria have better opponents than Angela, but you can't compare MMA fights like that. If you go back to watch UFC 1 to 10, many fighters would say, man, they suck, I can beat them. Yeah, that's a good point. Also, it's about styles. Styles make fights, and also the size advantage, too. Victoria's having a significant size advantage over her opponents. Smack a Lady says, I love lichens. Raw Hobbies and Lifestyle says Angela fought in strawweight at 1 before they set up hydration tests. That's why opponents are bigger. Well, I mean, she fought at 115 pounds. Like, all of her fights are at 115. I believe. When did they impose the hydration test is the big question. I mean, she made her debut for them in 2015. The fight is registered at strawweight, 115, 115 pounds. When did they implement the hydration protocol? Let me check that out. Let's see now. You know, I try not to use Google. I try to use like DuckDuckGo. But man, it's just not that great. Really not. So that got introduced in December of 2015. So Angela's first 2 fights occurred at strawweight before then. Oh, her first 3 fights, actually. Okay. 4 fights, actually. She fought, wow, yeah, she was very active in 2015. Actually, that was her most active year ever, 2015. So yeah, that's possible. She was fighting strawweights. I think Angela has always gotten away with weight cutting now. I mean, she's just so big for that division. And we've seen, you know, decent sized fighters make that weight before, include with the hydration protocols. So, final topic I wanted to talk about, and this has been going around, this whole WFL thing. It's a new MMA league, or it's supposed to be a new MMA league. And I thought it would be interesting to talk about because they're promising like unionization, a collective bargaining agreement with like 50-50 revenue share. So let's go ahead and talk about this for a little bit. So this, someone broke this down on the Sherdog forums from Ariel Hawani's Substack article about it. It says they're not really calling it a promotion. They're calling it a league because it's not going to be set up like the UFC. It says the group is made up of several former and current professional athletes from the world of NFL, NBA, and MMA, including multiple MMA world champions, 5 former respected MMA promoters, former MMA executives and matchmakers, actors, and recording artists. It says, according to sources, the WFL has been in the works since 2020, and the nonprofit was established May 3rd, 2021. Okay, so it's been in the works since last year. That's not that big a deal. The league will consist of 4 conferences: North America, South America, Europe, Africa, and Asia, Oceania. Each conference will consist of no less than 8 teams and no more than 24. Here's where the trouble already starts, because they're talking about teams, which if you've been around long enough to remember the IFL days, the International Fight League, there's a lot of controversy about, you know, that whole fight team format. It says they are currently focused on launching a North America, or excuse me, each team will roster 24 athletes comprising of 3 athletes per weight class. They are currently focused on launching a North America first. However, the framework is in place for a true world league. At this time, they have 6 approved franchise owners, 4 in the USA and 2 in Canada, and claim they have multiple proposals and applications being submitted for other teams. The conference will launch when there are 8 respective approved team owners. According to sources, The CBA terms can't and won't be negotiated until they have a union of athletes established. However, any approved franchise owner has signed agreements that enforces certain terms and conditions they must abide by. Some of these provisions are put into place so they will not be able to take more than a 50% revenue share. Additionally, per sources, they must provide specific levels of health insurance, career-ending insurance, and pension plan for their athletes. When the union is established, the plan is for athletes and owners to finalize negotiations and agreements. The hope is that more info, including and perhaps most importantly, the players involved in this venture, will be revealed in the coming days, weeks. The plan, I'm told, is to launch the league in 2023. That's being told to Ariel Helwani, of course. So it's interesting. I mean, there's some things to like there. The idea of a 50-50 revenue share, that sounds great because that's what a lot of the large leagues like NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, those are roughly 50-50 splits or close to it. Whereas in UFC, their stated goal for me is to not have the revenue, the amount of revenue go to the fighters ever get past 20%, and to try to keep it closer to like 18%. So whereas the UFC is trying to keep fighter pay down, or at least the revenue share down, these guys want to do 50-50. That's nice. I like that. Here's my thing. They're talking about teams. Like I said earlier, if you were around for the IFL days, the International Fight League days, overall MMA fandom did not take well to the idea of fighters being on a team. They said MMA is not a team sport. Personally, I disagree. As someone who wrestled in school, wrestling is an individual sport, but you do it as a team. You travel as a team, you go to team meets, and you have your individual matches, but it is a dual meet for the teams. Now, granted, at the end of the season, or if you go to different tournaments, then those are as an individual. But the individual events that you go to are like weekly or whatever, and you travel as a team and you work with a team. And let's be honest here. To get a fighter ready for a fight takes a team. They have their teams. You have like American Top Team, which a lot of the fighters work together. Now, granted, that's a huge gym. So you have like different groups that work together with each other. Or you have like AKA, and those guys all train together and help each other prep for a fight. Or you have like the old school, Militich. They all helped each other train for their fights. Or the Lion's Den and what have you. Like getting into the more old school teams. Or you have like Team Elevation is new. Or for a while you had the Black Zillions fight team. So to completely say that MMA just is not a team sport, I think there's room for that. I do. However, I remember a lot of people just could never get on board with that team concept. And the IFL, after several seasons, ended up dropping it altogether. People just didn't react to it very well. I was disappointed. I thought it was a cool concept because a lot of these so-called teams, like the Los Angeles Anacondas or whatever they were mostly like all guys from one team that all train together. The Quad City Silverbacks or whatever, they were all Militich guys. So they were a legit team. Had they actually done a good concept instead of giving them team names, like a city or whatever, and just said, oh, it's the Militich team versus team Boss Rutan or whatever, I think it would have made more sense. I am thirsty. But unfortunately, like I said, people just didn't go for it. Also, they have plans to go worldwide with this. It's like, you got to walk before you can run. I mean, it's nice to have these plans in place, or at least to have ideas and goals, but man, you got to walk before you can run. So to me, it's like they're already thinking way too big. And then they're saying it's going to take a while to establish this union. So again, it's going to take a while to really get everything going. Now, one thing I saw that really has me worried about this is, according to Fight Oracle, at Fight Oracle on Twitter, and he's a pretty good source, he tweeted out the new MMA league that Ariel wrote about, which is this WFL, is World Fight League. Here is the trademark filing. The address listed is the Hesser Foundation, which is headed up by Michael Hesser, who was involved with World Series of Fighting Global. Excuse me. He says, Google it. It was a total disaster. Nothing but lawsuits. He's right. World Series of Fighting. Okay, let me take you back in case you're not familiar. Before PFL was rebranded as PFL, it was World Series of Fighting. And they also had a splinter group that broke off from the original group and started World Series of Fighting Global. They had, I think, a grand total of 1, maybe 2 events before everything just went belly up and fell apart, and all these lawsuits were happening. They had big plans then, too, because they were starting a website, almost like they were starting a streaming service that was involving these other like regional MMA promotions and selling subscriptions to it. And it's like, bro, you've barely even started promoting your own events. By the way, the site was terrible. The streaming site was terrible. Like, I bought a month membership and it went belly up like, I don't know, like 2 months after that, maybe. But it's like, again, at the time, they were trying to run before they could even crawl. And you got to crawl before you can walk. You got to walk before you can run. And it's like, this to me, with their big plans already in their heads, just screams of World Series of Fighting Global again. And I'm glad that Fight Oracle mentioned that, because, man, as soon as he said that and I looked at these plans, I was like, holy crap. This does sound like World Series of Fighting again. So I hope that this can work out. I have my doubts, because right now starting any MMA promotion and trying to do big things with it is going to be difficult, because the market is so saturated right now. And then the UFC has just such a death grip on the sport, where it's at the point where right now where, especially in North America, where WFL is going to start out, the most casual fans, mixed martial arts, MMA, is synonymous with UFC. Like, the 2 acronyms are just interchangeable, basically. So, I mean, I would like to see World Fight League possibly do something right, but there are just so many red flags that I have a hard time seeing it happen. And I hate to be a Debbie Downer, because I know I can be a real Debbie Downer sometimes when it comes to a lot of things. But it just comes from having been a fan of this sport since early 2005. So 16 years a fan of this sport. Excuse me. You just learn to temper expectations. Anyway, that's all I have for tonight. So, what are you guys' thoughts? We only got like 5 people here. How many likes we got? Because we had like upwards of 10 people for a while. The audience had like upwards of 10 people for a while. Audience has been very wavy, very in and out throughout the night. 6 likes, 2 dislikes. I already know who gave the dislikes. Oh well. But if you are watching and you haven't hit the like button yet, please do. That helps get the algorithm going. But if anybody else has any thoughts left, go ahead and put them in the chat, because I have to use the restroom and can't hold it too much longer. So I'll go ahead and give you a minute. Local MMA PH, welcome to the chat. Says, yeah, UFC owns the game. That is very true. Even globally, like a lot of the markets that like you would think One Championship has cornered, more people know of the UFC than they do One Championship. Also, local also says, agreed, and the logo looks like a baseball league. It does. It kind of reminds me of like American Gladiators with the shield. Robert Southman says, this is a good channel. Well, thank you, Robert. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'll admit I've been slacking a little bit lately, but I'm trying. I am trying. Going to try to do a couple things before bed tonight, although I am tired. I didn't have any energy drinks tonight, so I'm trying to quit those because they are bad for you. I just had an old friend. Like, I haven't talked to him in a long time, but a kid I went to school with and wrestled with and graduated with just died like a couple months ago, and the only thing they could possibly think of was that he was like drinking a lot of energy drinks all the time. Like, he was in good shape, really didn't drink much, just like beers on the weekend, went to the gym, worked in the mill, but closest thing they could think was he had like some clogged arteries, and they think he was drinking like the energy drinks got to him. So we'll see. So I'm trying to quit the energy drinks, but it's hard because I am like super big on caffeine and sugar. I basically run on that, so we'll see. But Robert says, can't wait to see what's next. So the plan right now is to keep things going steady as they are, keep growing the channel, trying to work on, as soon as I can, start introducing like some technique breakdowns onto the channel. I found someone that'll do them with me, a local mixed martial arts school that will do technique breakdowns. So that's one of the things I have next. Local says, I am a Filipino, but I got over the decision, haha. But it just sucks that the undefeated record was blemished. Like Max said, it is what it is regarding Ham versus Denice. Yeah, it is what it is sometimes. I'm not a big fan of that expression. I think people overuse it, but sometimes it is. And Raw Hobbies and Lifestyle says, like it or not, One Championship has the best kickboxer now. Also, they bring up the awareness of combat sports, especially MMA in Southeast Asia. Yeah, they are doing a good job over there, or at least it seems like it. I don't know. I don't live there, so I can't really tell. Like, I know some of you guys live there, so you let me know. Like, are they actually raising awareness of MMA in Southeast Asia? I'd like to think so. I hope so, because that is a hotbed for combat sports, especially like the Philippines. You know, big boxing country, but if they can get a good MMA scene going out there, like a really good one, that'd be awesome. Local MMA PH says, hi, Uncle Robert. Robert Southman says, I'd like to see some of the female fighters actually getting interviewed, not by their league. Yeah, I'm going to try to do some more interviews. I'm going to try to. And then Robert says, oi, local. Or is it locale? So anyway, this is one of the longest shows I've done in a while, an hour and 33 minutes. So thank you to everyone that was watching. Yeah, Robert says one has all the best kickboxers. I think as far as the ladies go, the only one they're really missing right now, well, there's a lot of ladies in Japan, kickboxers. But as far as like outside of like, say, Japan, the only one they're really missing right now is Tiffany Timebomb, Tiffany Van Soest. I'd love to see her get away from Glory and sign with one. That'd make for some fun fights. But anyway, that's really all I have. Like I said, if you're watching, go ahead and leave a quick comment before I go in the chat. If you're watching the playback, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to hit that like button. It helps, get the algorithm going and brings more eyes to the stream and the channel. And if you haven't yet, go ahead and subscribe to WMMA Scene Now, the most complete women's mixed martial arts dedicated platform on YouTube. Looks like that's all we have for tonight. So you all have a good night, and we'll see you probably Sunday night for a weekend rundown. We'll see you later.